Hello, my name is Alexis Roach, and today I'll be sharing with you my thesis project titled Examining Factors Related to Growth After Suicide Loss. So first, just a little bit of information on why I decided to study this and why I believe this population needs our attention. So for every suicide loss, there are approximately 6 loved ones who are significantly affected. Literature has come to refer to this population as survivors of suicide loss, or SOSL. And SOSL face many mental health deficits and actually are 3.7 times more likely to attempt suicide themselves. So it's evident that there is a need for improvement in their treatment and that we need to have research that would identify what exactly would cause this improvement. So there is some existing research and some research turns to a portion of the population who experiences growth after trauma, in this case, growth after suicide loss, in which a survivor actually has improvement in themselves or their lives in one aspect or another, and probably it's worth mentioning that that's alongside these other mental health deficits. But we believe that this population or this phenomenon might give us answers into improving bereavement treatments. So there is some existing literature for which I listed out some of the identified factors that are deemed to correlate or be related to growth after trauma in this population. But many of these factors are what I deem to be non-modifiable. For example, you cannot change how much time has passed since a survivor's suicide loss. We can't change that. And a help-seeking attitude is great to make someone reach out for help, but once they're in therapy and they've reached out themselves, that really doesn't help us much. So anyways, I have 4 new proposed factors that I believe may moderate growth after suicide loss. Those are involving oneself in suicide-related philanthropy, 2, involving oneself in support groups, 3, forgiveness towards self and forgiveness towards your lost loved one, and lastly, the frequency at which you disclose your story of suicide loss. So how did I research this and see if these were related? Well, I collected my own data, including 106 survivors of suicide loss from Survivors of Suicide Loss San Diego, as well as a subreddit called Suicide Bereavement. Here you can see how I collected many variables, but these are just the ones I'm presenting to you today. So here you can see listed out the questions that we asked our participations exactly. Pretty straightforward. And at the end of the Qualtrics survey, we measured their growth after trauma using an established scale called the Post-Traumatic Growth Inventory score form, for which there was a max score of 60 and a minimum score of 6. So what did we find? We did find that all the variables that we proposed, aside from the element of forgiveness towards loved one, were significantly related to growth after trauma. Specifically just pointing out some estimates here. So if participant responded yes to involving themselves in philanthropy, our model suggests that on average they would have an 11-point boost in their post-traumatic growth, and so on. You can see my other estimates here. And then just one more thing worth pointing out, disclosure frequency was significant, but follow-up statistics show that the only true difference between our levels here lies between sharing 10 times and sharing once or twice. So if we were to redo this question or redo the survey, we would probably opt for a sliding scale in which we allowed participants to estimate their own number and not confine them to these groups, because we don't really know what lies past those 10 plus times. However, it's still helpful and may possibly imply that a psychological professional needs to encourage their client to share 10 plus times, and that the difference between sharing not at all and just once or twice within the year might not be much effective. So I've already gone over some implications, but again, just to wrap it up, we believe that these are factors that are modifiable with psychological help, with professional psychological help, and may serve as basis or serve as basis for treatments that would encourage growth after trauma or growth after suicide loss, but also might imply some basis for how to get survivors of suicide loss just back to pre-loss mental health. We don't want to imply at all that growth after trauma should always be the main goal from this population, as it is a very complicated and devastating trauma. That concludes my project. Thank you so much.